Oh, you mean households and units? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Ning?
Hold on.
Okay, I get that.
Nope.
Yeah, that's
Okay, turn. Okay, yeah, all right. Good evening, and welcome to the AHAB. It is May 8th, 2025, and we are in person here at City Hall, and then we also have some online. And so with that, I will take attendance. See.
Christina, I'm sorry, do you need pausing real quick before we do attendance?
Yeah, I don't mind pausing.
Sorry, thank you. I hear an echo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I?
Man,
Like that TV in the back?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's okay. You hear my voice in 3D, 4D.
Yeah, the court plays a how to get out of trouble video in the morning, so.
Oh.
Okay, you are watching, hold on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Welcome back. We will now take roll for our meeting, and I will go in the order as I see us here in the list. Mark Bueller.
Here.
Andrew Gallagher.
Here.
Maria Fiero.
Here.
Christina Gentry, present. Elizabeth O'Neill.
Here.
Donovan Dillon.
Present.
Hello, and Monty Sokup.
Here.
And that is all. We are at a quorum and at full attendance. Yay. Okay, so with that, I'll hand over the instructions for hybrid and all of the things to Leah. Please take that over. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distractions during the meeting. When the chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Please state your name before speaking. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Virtual participants should use the raise hand button to indicate that they wish to speak. Once your name is called, you will be unmuted and you may turn on your camera to provide your comments. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. The primary format for accessing or participating in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Thank you, and now I'll turn it over to Chairwoman Gentry. Chairperson.
Thank you. Moving on, thank you very much. Moving on to the item A, agenda, approve the minutes. We will, one, consider approval of the meeting minutes for last meeting, April 10th, 2025. Can I get a first or a second?
I'll move approval.
And
Second
got a first by Mark and a second by Monty. I'm going to go through the roll and take a roll of approval, yea or nay. Mark Bueller.
Aye.
Andrew Gallagher.
Aye.
Mariel Fiero.
Aye.
Christina Gentry, aye. Elizabeth O'Neill.
Aye.
Donovan Dillon.
Aye.
Monty Sokup.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yays and ayes, 0 nays. Moving on. We have agenda items to consider under B. One is to receive 2024 Lawrence Housing Market Study Report. This report was completed by KU urban planning students in Dr. Han's housing course. Wanted to just also note that Dr. Han was an Affordable Housing Advisory Board member, and we are so very happy that there's still a continuation for collaboration and education through Dr. Han's approach and students and guidance. So, yes. With that, is there a discussion or any recommendations or even any discussion or talk about this report?
So just Monty Sokup, will there be someone here to present and kind of guide us through this? I mean, I can read it and then there's things that I don't really fully comprehend. So it'd be nice to have somebody to ask questions. That would set a possibility at a future date.
I think that is definitely a consideration and something that we could ask and provide recommendation for future action. So I think it's appropriate to ask for that. And Leo, would you be able to set that meeting up in time? Perfect.
Okay.
This is Maria Ferreiro. I'd love to know what the questions are, or what initial reactions we got from this report. I think there's some really interesting things that were brought up here that I could see us maybe with a continued presentation on this report bringing up. There are recommendations that I think are great, and would love to see this Dr. Hahn and whatever next iteration of this class is maybe look into more policy recommendations around this report. Also noting that we'll have a housing study done by the City of Lawrence coming to us soon. So it would be really interesting to put both of those by each other and see what we get. But I guess I'd like to know from y'all what your initial reactions are.
I think there's some questions around interpretation of the graphs in recommendations, because even what I was saying earlier, I realize now is totally incorrect. So I know that's a question that I have that would be helpful, is to have them kind of walk us through how to interpret the graphs and the recommendations correctly, so that we're not all putting our own assumptions and interpretations on and then being incorrect.
Yeah. I read the recommendations, and I have to admit, I have not read the whole report, so I probably remiss in that at this point. But as I read the recommendations, it's more of to me, it's more of an explanation of the graph, not a recommendation of, here are things that maybe we should look at doing. But again, I haven't read the whole thing, so I'm going to not be critical. Just that's my first blush observation.
My first blush, and I read it briefly, but I kept looking for, okay, what do we do? Or what does somebody think we should do? And it's information. It obviously showed that COVID had an effect on population, on all kinds of things. So I think we kind of know that, but this gives us more detail. So I too would like a presentation. I'd like to kind of understand, now that we have it, what's it mean to the people that put it together, and what's it mean to us?
Yep. Thank you for phrasing those. I think big takeaways from this, just without, I didn't really assume for them to give us policy recommendations, as it was just a study they did. And
Right.
I appreciated the in-depth look at student housing. We did not get that on our last housing study. It was decided by the city, whomever at that time, that we would not move forward with discussion around student housing. I think this is starting to give us a snapshot into how deeply unaffordable it is to live here and go to school. Just even looking at the increases in rates for apartments at the university, that has gone up. You can see that in section 4 under student housing. But I think what we know to be true and trending with national data and information is that it's getting more unaffordable. We as a body are working on that in Lawrence, but I think what I would be interested, I won't speak for all of us, is looking into what recommendations and policy, because I think our job is really to be the policy recommenders. We can utilize the guidance of these studies, but we're really the ones who should be kind of researching and coming up with good policy. How is that going to affect student population? Are they in the picture? I always ask this question of, where is the KU partnership in this? Perhaps that is there, and I would love to hear their reactions from this, perhaps more than I would the students that conducted this. Are they seeing it? Is that something that we can encourage? I think long been an elephant in the room around affordable housing, that we do have one of the biggest landlords in the town being the University of Kansas. And how is that affecting students, knowing that enrollment's going down, knowing that we're seeing some tension between homeowners, renters, students in this community. I just think this is a very important thing to focus on, and I'm very excited to see Dr. Hahn do a study in Lawrence as she does this work nationally. Why not us, and why not include the students? So as you all continue to look at this, maybe as we can get some of those questions answered by a presentation, I would really love for this body to think very deeply about how we start talking about affordability and being really inclusive of everybody who is seeking housing in this community, and how we are encouraging affordable housing in the university system.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for that, Mariel. I took an excerpt from that report too that resonated, and it really resonates today too, as well as all the work that we do. And it took from the Lawrence Housing Market Survey that it yielded a difference in supply and demand in the owner-occupied housing market. So I took that excerpt and I applied it here, and hopefully can continue to understand more about this report. But what stuck out for me is that there are fewer units at lower value than can meet the demands of low-income households in Lawrence. And that's 2024 report and data, and that's local and that's recent. And so that stuck out to me. And so with that in mind, I think this is a very good report to continue to explore. Also with the infinite opportunities maybe to bring in people who are utilizing student housing in a way that can answer to data that could say, yeah, we absolutely see that happening. So ongoing conversation, it sounds as though we could have this happen at another time.
Donovan has a comment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, just kind of echoing sentiments for Christina and Marielle. Being a student, and one of the reasons I applied to this board is like seeing the relationship between students being able to afford to live in Lawrence, whether that's on campus or off campus, but then also low-income people in general. I think as someone who does live off campus in a house that could probably house a lower income family, like I think that's a relationship I'm really interested in exploring, in a conversation that doesn't typically happen, especially when or at least I personally have seen more conversations of like homeowners being like, I don't want to live next to college students, and things like that. When we know KU, I think for the past few years maybe this last year has accepted more students than they had space for on campus. So seeing these numbers like really got me thinking. And I will say, the recommendations portion, I will say it just like interpreted the graphs for me. But I do think it's an opportunity for us to really look into policies and get our wheels turning on what those could look like in regards to this conversation that I think is way overdue and happening, and only harms populations we should be serving by not having.
So Leah, knowing that this was a class project essentially, and we will probably be losing some of the students, and also that it's May and, graduation's happening. I guess I would be interested in maybe knowing a timeline of whether that's, if it feels comfortable for Dr. Hahn. I think there's also something to be said about that in relation to this board, but if Dr. Hahn feels comfortable presenting, or if even one of those students feel comfortable, I would love to know a timeline so we can have the ability to maybe even influence the housing study that's coming up. That NOFO is still out. We have not selected anybody to do the housing study as of yet, and so if we have a better picture of this, perhaps when that chosen consultant comes forward, we can say, hey, we really need to reinforce this or make sure that this is, there's supplemental investigation, I guess, into this particular data. So I would just like to know if that could happen potentially before the housing study.
Cool. Yeah. This is Leah Rosen. Absolutely. I will. When Dr. Hahn and I were talking about this study, she had indicated an interest in really helping to support the city of Lawrence, and that perhaps engaging her classes and students in the Lawrence housing market is an ongoing project. So I will certainly reach out to her and see what timing might work for her to come back and present, and hopefully invite some of the students that were involved. I know it was a class that was a mix of undergraduate and graduate students, so those graduate students might still be around. But yeah, I would aim to get a presentation by our next meeting if possible, but I'll work with Dr. Hahn's schedule. And I really appreciate the points that everybody brought up. And since, I've long wondered about the impact of the inadequate KU student housing stock, the inadequacy of KU's ability to house their students, and the impact on the housing stock and affordability in Lawrence, particularly as Donovan mentioned, for families, that KU students will rent these big houses and have multiple roommates and, close down Stauffer Place, what was KU family housing, and it has become increasingly more difficult for families with children to find housing, that has adequate bedrooms and the affordability. So I think it is something that's really important that we get a handle on, and appreciate your good questions and inviting Dr. Hahn back to speak further.
Yeah. So just getting a timeline and understanding, our next calendar meeting is in September, and so this would be in the September meeting, possibly with the opportunity of there being an October meeting and there being those. So yes, just wanted to keep that in mind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great discussion. The next item under agenda is item 2, to discuss Affordable Housing Month proclamation, which will be May 20th, this year, 2025. The action is to agree on presenters for Affordable Housing Month proclamation. And so I would like maybe Leah to give a little bit of backdrop, because I think that for the very first time last year, the city of Lawrence hosted the time, or proclaimed Affordable Housing Month as May, and last year you were able to kind of facilitate that conversation. So maybe a little backdrop, because we like to invite all of the board members to participate in this opportunity. So maybe a little bit of history as to the importance of this time and date, and entice them a little bit to show up for the May 20th date.
Yeah, so May is Affordable Housing Month. It's not a nationally recognized, month, but is recognized in different states, and we recognized it for the first time in the city of Lawrence last year. And Monty, who is then the chair, presented with Nicholas, who is the vice chair, and spoke to the commission about the importance of affordable housing in our community, the outcomes, the positive outcomes connected to affordable housing and the work of the AHAB. The City Commission will be doing a proclamation again this year on May 20th, and Christina and Marielle, as the chair and vice chair, have agreed to present. And then I also invited the directors of our affordable housing nonprofits to attend, and they have agreed as well to attend and make comment. And I just think it would be really powerful for all the AHAB, if possible, to make some comments either in person or on Zoom to present a united front. And I think that Marielle had some really great ideas about what the content of the comments or presentation might be. So I don't know if you want to talk more, but
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
No.
Okay. I think so. Christina, Leah, and I had a conversation, and think the conversation, first and foremost, is continuing to uplift lived experience, which I think Christina is excellent in advocating and doing, and not just the affordable housing space, but in a lot of spaces. So I think that will be part of the conversation of, continuing to talk about how affordable housing impacts Lawrencians and nationally. Some of the points I brought up in our meeting is, some of you may know, but last Friday, we've got the proposed budgets in Congress, and one of the proposed budget shifts was to drastically cut HUD almost by 50%. That reality would devastate programming that we have relied on for decades, that has really shaped housing, and not only in the affordable housing realm, but also in homeless services, how we support and do case management. It will have a very dire impact on communities across the country. What that could look like for us is our CBG funds being gone, our home funds potentially being gone, and those are fundings that support our housing authorities, support putting roofs on fire department buildings, right? Like, it doesn't just impact affordable housing, it impacts infrastructure. It will also drastically impact the way we see folks utilizing services. And so with that potential on the horizon, there has been conversation nationally. Funny enough, all of the affordable housing conferences are happening right now, so I've been traveling a lot and hearing the same level of anxiety in this, and also knowing here at home our state legislation has done a pretty harmful action in altering our low-income affordable housing tax credit, which is one of the only mechanisms we have to build affordable housing in our communities. So all of that storminess to say, I think we're in a moment, right, to not only talk about some of the harms that are coming our way potentially, but also talk about this is our opportunity to lean in as a community. How are we, not just as a body, leaning into solutions to affordable housing and getting really creative, but how are we calling in the rest of the community and noting that our nonprofits can't do this alone, and even within the scope of our city government, there are going to be limitations. And so how are we leaders in that conversation and asking people to really lean in and say, we're going to have to be creative. We're not going to see funding, programming how we used to. And so, what chaos sometimes leads into is innovation. So that is kind of the breadth of the message that I was intending to bring. It may also be an awareness campaign of what's going on, because I don't know if I've seen enough of the stirring from our community about what this means. We have a strategic plan, but this drastically affects that particular strategic plan. So, instead of wallowing in despair, I would really encourage us to lean in a little bit deeper in how we use this trust fund and how we talk about affordable housing policy that could be really lasting and impactful, and how we leverage the relationships that we have with the community, with the university, with the hospital systems, with all of these other players to really say, like, affordable housing intersects all of these. How do we partner with you in a deeper way to maybe help fill some of those gaps that we will soon see grow a lot deeper? So that's what I'll say on this one hand.
That's exactly why we wanted to give the opportunity, and thank you for that, because it's here that we agree on presenters for Affordable Housing Month proclamation, and I'd like to open the opportunity up to those who have passion about this subject. I'm also thinking about those whose maybe tenure here is looking to expire, and maybe this is a chance to talk about how and what passions lie with you in affordable housing, and to talk about that on a city level. That's very powerful. So I can open that up, and Donovan as well. I would really encourage others to, if you want to take this opportunity, it seems like with Mariel, to take that space. Yeah.
Well, I'm not, I've been a part of reading proclamations, giving proclamations. I have an opinion about proclamations. I know why we do it, but the message I want to give to this board is the message that I haven't, the same one that I've believed all my life, is at some point there is a reality of supply and demand in the world. If you look at the affordable housing stock in this community today, if you go to every one that you would say is worth, you pick the number, 250 or less, 300 or less, whatever. Most of that stock, historically, until the late 40s, early 50s, was built in and around neighborhoods east of Mass. As Lawrence grew, south of the campus became, in the 50s and 60s, Osdale Road, 21st and Osdale Road. Just pick that location mentally. All the 1,000-foot ranchers and all that kind of stuff. And when that happened, we had an oversupply of buyers, prospects, coming back from the war. People were going to college. There's a long way around the fact that to fix this problem and make us independent, we have to invest in housing, period. If you're going to build 10 houses and 20 people want them, the people that are going to get them are the most able financially, they're ready, they have money, they have a job, they win. They have won for centuries. So what I want is a reality that we have 20 houses out there, we have 12 buyers, and we have an opportunity for those that don't have what the 12 buyers have to step up and be a part of it, whether it's subsidized through the government in some form or fashion or not. That is the only way we're going to work ourselves out of it. I've been reading some national numbers. If you take California, take all the housing challenges in this country, the number is astounding. We can build one every 20 minutes for the next 30 years and not meet the demand, or some number. I don't have the number, but you get the idea. It's endless. And if Lawrence doesn't take responsibility for making land and housing available to all, then I'll tell you who will. Lecompton will. Eudora will. Gardner will. There will be a meet for this demand, and it just won't be in this cool little community we call the town of the University of Kansas. So, the university's been, I don't know if they have the right kind of housing, but in the last 15 years, they put some housing out there. And quite frankly, they've responded when the private sector could not. So I don't know how you always need KU to help you live your life, but I'm not pointing fingers there. This is private sector, this is city, this is county. We have a county that has decided as a county that all the growth is going to be dedicated basically to Lawrence. If you go to other counties, I'm not suggesting it's how we ought to live, but there are endless rural subdivisions in Shawnee County. Maybe the places that you've lived and grown up, and they're inefficient, they have septic and blah, blah, but they met demand. And we have not opened that up in Douglas County, and they don't want to. They want pristine, they want hills for us to look at, places to walk. I get it, rivers to run. There's an environmentalist in me too. But the reality is we have to have housing.
That's right.
And the city and the 5 people sitting up there are ultimately responsible for that. And whether we get tax credit funding cut or not, they can help development occur. It's expensive, it's troublesome, it's hard on budgets. It makes you think that's more important than this problem too. It's hard stuff, but that's, and the other answer is jobs. People people need value in their life so they can, if they choose to, so they can own something. So they can sweep their own walk. So they can mow their own grass and have the same worries that homeowners have. They want that, but they have to have a valuable job. We need jobs and we need housing. Bingo. That's it. Now, how you get there, not easy, but
But we got to do it.
we need
You
jobs.
you do want to give the proclamation on the 20th.
No, I don't.
Mark,
I
that was
get,
We're
beautiful.
recording this.
Yes.
Play it on the loop behind.
I'll get mad. I will.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I didn't say I wasn't going to get mad.
please. Just
It was
get mad.
very poignant, though.
Mark.
Well, anyway, that's,
Yeah.
I know that's 10,000 feet and real simple, harder to do, but
It's the core.
that is absolutely, the university is developing land, Monty's World over there. They're meeting demand. They're looking at their problem. There's going to be housing over there. It's not going to be for everybody. But, you know, the biggest developer in Douglas County in the last 4 years is KU. Well, that shouldn't be. They should be a part of it and get what they need and get what they want.
Right.
But this is crazy. We fight over rezonings and we just war over everything. It's crazy.
You could say that again.
Yes.
Well, I'm really happy that the discussion opened up people's passions about affordable housing, and I still want to pay an opportunity for others to take
I
part in
don't
that.
necessarily want to, this is Monty Soka, I don't necessarily want to talk at the commission, but I had my opportunity last year. But I think it's important after the gloom and doom that we're going to have. that we're also, no, it's the reality. It is the reality, right? So I think it's important to also say that our community is ahead in the fact that we have a trust fund. You know, our community voted to put that in, and there is a passion for that. And the other thing I think maybe it's worth mentioning is, and we need to do this work, is find other funding sources for that. So those two things, we're ahead because we've got something and we've been, we're going down this road. We have a lot of things in place already that are moving in the right direction. We just need more pushes on the flywheel and more funding. So I don't know who would say that, but I mean, if you're going to talk, you could say that at the
Yeah,
end
have
of
a
your thing.
30-minute proclamation.
You get 3 minutes.
Got a list.
It will be our last.
I mean, that doesn't scare me. That will just send a very clear message.
I don't think there's much that scares you.
No.
The other
Good
thing,
thing. We like
Thank you,
that.
Monty, for bringing that up, because I was kind of thinking about that too, how it would be nice, after all of that and laying out the realities, to really hone in on some of the positive things that have happened and that, the community has experienced over the last year. And so highlighting some of the projects that have been funded
Absolutely.
and there's the groundbreaking.
Oh my, we have so much to be proud of.
Highlighting like those awesome things that have happened also that are helping to advance. And so like a balance
Right.
between.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, and to me, a challenge to the commission to be open to ideas on funding.
Yes.
Because they could easily shut down things. I mean, they could be scared of things or things that we have not done in Douglas County or even in this state that we might propose. And they need to have an open mind to that if they want to tackle this problem.
and Mark Bueller, again, here's one that actually didn't come to me. It came to me through Monty. The city owns, how many lots? I know you've counted them. A bunch of lots. And they're here and there, and there's a story behind every city-owned lot. And some of it was to settle fights about drainage and flooding. And, I mean, there were some reasons that the city owned some lots in town, because every time it rains an inch and a half, it's wet. But there are lots of lots that they could help get in the marketplace to someone, create some rules, but not too many. We need rears in the seats. We need to go. And they own over 100. I mean, it's not insignificant. But they need to start thinking about that.
Oh, may I? Yes.
I appreciate you bringing that up, and it has been maybe over a year, maybe over 2 years since this body, this body has looked at the list of city-owned lots that could be potential areas for affordable housing development. And I'm wondering if this board might be interested in bringing that back and looking at that again, and perhaps making some recommendations to the commission on specific sites.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
I do think, like any situation, we need to have a discussion with somebody, not 100 somebodies, on why some of them are held. Well, I mean, let's don't go die on a hill on a lot that they've got to keep. It's got to be a garden. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. There's no reason to fight a fight we can't win. But maybe there's no one that knows why we own that particular number of lots. We can start making stuff up. I'm sure neighbors are a part of it. I am sure they're a part of it. I'm sure they've settled fights and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, this is Monty. So we have looked at some of them, and some of them do have reason. I mean, like, we looked at some around some of the parks that looked like they could be, and they were funded with HUD funds, and you have to go to HUD. You know, so there are some of them that you would look at normally and go, oh, that looks like a great spot, and there are
may not
contractual
be there
reasons they
anymore.
cannot be developed. So there are some of those, but there are some that I don't know or have not been told the reason they can't, other than they can't. So certainly I agree. We should have those conversations. Some part of this group narrow those down to some that have a chance, like you say, that aren't flat out no's for the commission, and see if we can't push that forward.
We're way more than a trust fund distributing body, and I think that this all speaks to that. So, yeah, I think Christina and I have a lot to, and I encourage you all. I mean, thank you for saying that. I mean,
This is
just
a great
so you all know, Delmar Place, that is the 32 units of senior housing that will that will open in October, and so that is proof of our investment in housing that is affordable in perpetuity. That is going to be voucher-based.
Right.
That is going to help the wait list of over 100 seniors alone who are waiting for housing.
That's on Clinton Parkway, right?
Yes,
It's coming up, Frame. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right next to the grocery store.
yes, right next to the new grocery store. I was a little bitter that you were moving the
Hey, you
grocery
Olive
store, but then I
Garden.
was like, wait a minute, it's going to a place that
When you're
is
here, you're a fan.
walkable and accessible. And I think that those are the projects that we really, really need to be proud of. And just like you said, it is very easy to name the issue, right? It would be so easy for me to say, here's all the stuff that is stacked against us, but here's what we have to do. We need more housing. We need housing that makes sense for people, right? That to me is the affordability factor doesn't make sense to the populations that we have. In addition to building, right? We have to kind of sit with both of those things, because we're also living in a deeply unaffordable world. So how do we rise to that while we encourage our city to open up development, to encourage partners that are not exclusively the ones and twos who always develop? How do we do that as a stronger body of people? And I'm interested to see that movement. So, yeah, if there's anything else you'd like us to say, we won't name names for anybody publicly.
No, not at all. Okay, thank you for the great discussion. I hope all of that city commissioners listened to these, so I hope that it resonated as well as a proclamation on all the board. I did also want to put in, and if I could, add an update to the agenda item. And that's maybe takes a little bit of like legalese to talk about, like how do I insert that like the way the city commission wants me to. But I wanted to come back and talk about the AHAB subcommittees because I know that we did talk about that on the agenda item, but that happens to be on the same date that those who did fill out the doodle poll agreed to join. So May 20th would be the first date of the subcommittee that meets for our AHAB's subcommittee meeting. So that was the date I chose. I haven't told you guys that.
I was going to say.
But that was the date, yeah. And so I just wanted to take that into consideration too, if there was something that you did and wanted to consider on that date, that we would be reintroducing that poll out. And if this is it correlates, but trust me. The date, the May 20th reminded me to recheck that doodle and get that sent out to you all to convene the subcommittee. So
I will
that's the May 20th. That's the connection I'm making here of that date because it's important to continue these conversations in the subcommittee portion that we have committed to trying to commit time to. So I just wanted to bring that up. That
Yeah, and I
we
think I
had that.
missed an email because I don't remember seeing a doodle poll, so I apologize for not filling that
I
out.
think that's for our other subcommittee.
Oh, okay,
There's-
okay.
We're still working on that.
Several committees.
Okay.
But
I did lead us askew, didn't I?
no, you're okay. I think that proclamation also won't take too terribly long, so I don't know if it'll actually impede on
Okay.
the meeting time. Usually, it's right at the beginning of a
Right, it's
a
first
mi-
thing.
a meeting, and they're not going to let either of us grandstand for an hour.
When does that convene? When should, if people are here, when should they be here?
Oh,
Our meeting usually starts at
5:30.
30?
5:45, yeah.
5:45, the
Okay.
meeting starts, but yeah.
So we might be done by 6,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
maybe that would
Is it
still
first
give
on the
space.
agenda?
Typically, proclamations are the first thing after they
But
approve
we won't be
minutes.
done by 6,
But-
because if there's 2,
I mean,
Because we're a bunch of yappers, so.
well, there's a couple, usually 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Last meeting there were 4.
I don't know what the
Right.
agenda would look like for that, but.
Yeah, we'll let them know we're coming. But thank you for entertaining that conversation and still continuing to talk about affordable housing on a broader and big level all the time, every day. So thank you. Moving on to our next agenda item, under agenda item number 3, we'll receive and consider approval of the 2026 Affordable Housing Trust Fund application materials. A little back of this, there has been a little bit of conversation. Last meeting in April, the group and the board had a good discussion that included points and metrics and adding rubrics and increasing, decreasing the point systems by which we apply and approve the trust fund notice of funding opportunity. So I wanted to take time to talk a little bit about those. If that's something that this group has had an email and a synchronous conversation that want to bring to topic here, we can have that discussion too. But noting that this was a conversation we had last month that was engaged, I thought it would be relevant and responsible to bring it up today. So yes, opening up that conversation for any of those who did connect with Leah or connect with others, well, only Leah because coma, and then make sure that, that your input was received and heard and is applied. So I'm sure also, Leah, you've got some updates that have been taken in consideration as a result of the board's influence and conversations that you've had too. So yeah, you can update us on that, and I'll stop talking.
Thank you, Christina. When we met last month, the board had discussed wanting to see a couple of changes. One was in regards to the new development and rehab application, and the question that what was around priority populations. Previously, there was a list of the populations that were prioritized in the Place for Everyone plan as experiencing housing disparities, and there was like a checkbox, and it was you get a point or whatever it was, 2 points, I don't remember at this point, for every priority population that your project is specifically designed for. The board wanted to see that differently and have more of an open-ended narrative. So I've made those changes as requested by the board. The other change that the board wanted to see was in regards to the development scoring matrix. The discussion was around wanting to increase the points for the period of affordability. Previously, that was at 20 points, and the board agreed last meeting to increase those points to 40. And then a majority of the board did send me recommendations for how we would adjust the scores for the other items. So I've made those changes based on just what the majority of members had recommended. And so I increased the score for period of affordability to 40 and decreased by 5 points each the following categories. Fully ADA units, universal design units, those were both previously 15 points, now they're 10. Sustainability, that was previously 10 and now it's 5. And I'm sorry, there's one other one. I believe it was location, used to be 15 and now is 10.
Sounds like the one side. I actually agree with that.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Monty Sokup, looking at the link, it looks great work. I'm looking at the length of affordability, and we have for less than 30 years, 0 points. Does that impact us on our LIHTC? Does that disadvantage our LIHTC because most of them are going to be 30? Do I have those numbers right?
You do.
I just wonder if
I assume LIHTC projects still fit, is what
they
I
do,
assume.
but they're 30 years or fewer, you get 0 points. So it's going to be a pretty
That was
hard hit to our LIHTC projects. And I get it, we're pushing, and obviously the feedback was to push to permanent, right? Which I agree with 100%. I just want to point that out because
Yeah, that's too strong.
you're going to get a
That's
0 on a LIHTC project, and the LIHTC projects are going to be.
Well,
So just,
all of the LIHTC projects we funded have been a 30-year affordability. We haven't funded any for less than 30 years.
right, but
This
this
now
says
gives it
if you're
0.
30 or fewer,
Oh, so it should say fewer than 30.
Fewer than
That is
30.
what I meant. So thank you.
okay, so
Yes.
fewer than 30, okay.
That is-
Not less than or equal to.
Yes,
Less than.
thank you. Yes.
catch.
Yeah.
So you need to change the next one
didn't
to
even think
30
about
to
that.
49.
Okay.
You know, you gotta make that next step,
Let me pull this up.
like you did 50 to 99.
Okay.
You gotta do, okay.
Right.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, good
Thank you.
catch. Thank you for.
Mark Bueller with a comment about, I'm in the insurance business and I write a lot of property coverage. And this is just a comment. We can't fix this. We can't fix insurance either right now. But a lot of the projects that were started in the 70s that are permanently affordable and were established, and I don't know if the owners over time have just taken too much out of it. I don't have that feeling. I know some of those clients. Those properties are in pretty bad disrepair, a lot of the older housing projects. They're not getting the maintenance boost they need, and they're still tethered to all the rules that they were. And anyway, it's just a comment like, we think we're putting stuff on the ground that's going to be good for today and evermore, right? We hope we did something kind of permanent in our life. But I'm just blinking a light that, man, some of those projects are not in good. And historically, those were in small rural communities, not Lawrence. They were in smaller rural communities. And it's kind of a feature in their town, kind of the center of the square and all that stuff. And there's probably a lot of other things that are happening in those communities that are making those look rough too. I don't know.
I think they're also, on a state level, the funding body who provides LIHTC projects, I think also has a responsibility to maintaining and supporting maintenance and repairs to the projects that they are awarding. I don't know if that's happening at the state. There is a home repairs program and there's kind of like a weatherization program, but
We had a request this go around, right?
yeah, I feel very, very deeply that there
Water
can be
heaters?
some better conversations at the state level. You know, unfortunately, that particular body did take a pretty big hit this year, but that doesn't mean that there isn't really creative housing finance directors and organizations across the country that are supporting programming like that. So, yeah, and I think in our own community, right, like if that isn't a reality, how are we in the rehabilitation and support of those properties? But
Can I just ask a clarifying question? On the projects that you were mentioning, were those were housing projects that were built in the 70s so is it the state that owns them or are they?
They're privately held.
Okay.
And they had tax credits and investments and they've, owned them for 50 years.
Okay.
So maybe it is, but those communities are, anyway,
yeah,
and it shows up at the insurance desk when try to get coverage and all that kind of stuff. I'm more aware of it than the guy on the street.
I would say at the last national housing finance directors meeting, rural communities and the degradation of housing in rural communities was a really big topic.
Oh, it's
there are some national organizations that specifically work to rehabilitate and revive rural areas in housing stock, but it is a huge issue. You just look at we call it dying towns, right? Because people move away because that housing is no longer appropriate and sustainable for them. So,
it was built wrong.
Right,
It's
right.
climate scares.
right. So, yeah, I think it speaks to our future too, right? If we're asking for affordability and perpetuity, that doesn't just mean at the stage of development. That means how are properties maintained? How are we supporting homeowners if they, live in those properties? How are we supporting if it's a nonprofit or a community land trust? How are we in that supporting network? Because I think that's a tough question. Once the development stage is over, what happens to those properties. But I have a little piece, just a thought process on this scoring matrix and how we utilize it. I think the conversation to me seems to be like we're tinkering with these numbers every year, a few points here, more points here. As the board changes, their priorities change. And I really want to encourage, maybe when we approach the training of how we utilize this matrix, how we're scoring, how we're using it in the full context of funding. I know we utilize this to start looking at applications and scoring them, but when it comes to actual funding, are we taking that aggregate data, prioritizing who scored the highest, funding according to that? Or are we scoring and then saying, no, let's just fund according to projects and size? I say that just because
You're right.
if we are not utilizing this matrix, it doesn't matter if we give it a jillion points to one spot or the other, right? And I think what these particular categories are speaking to are the priorities and desires of this body, right? We obviously said this year, we really want to see projects that are affordable in perpetuity, right? We really want to see, maybe I won't point and say like a move away from LIHTC. That may be the reality, that may not be the reality, but we have kind of made that statement with this matrix. If that is true, as we are considering funding projects, are we going to stay true to that? Are we going to utilize this matrix as intended. If not, I would really, I mean, I know this is potentially the last time we run through it this way, but I just want to open that to thought of this board of, is it taking us the full journey? Is it really a tool that we're using? And that to me speaks to, like, if we believe in equitable housing, affordability and housing, if we're saying those things, here's how we make it actionable, is how we fund and utilizing as a tool. If there's a difference in opinion, I think that's great. I kind of witnessed it last time, and then in the years before that of like, oh, that's interesting that we changed this matrix, and then at the point of funding, it seems to like leave the conversation a little bit. So,
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Mark Bueller. When we make decisions, we submit information to her and she changes the numbers, okay? I didn't go back and audit that, and I'm not here to fight about 4 points or 5 points. So at some point, I'm trying to be a part of a group, and not everybody believes the way I believe, and not everybody funded the last time around the way I funded. And quite frankly, the way I think I funded, I think I lost a whole bunch, okay? Now, that's what community work is, okay? We lose and we win, and if we can move the ball and help housing, that's great. But there were some projects last time that I thought were underfunded, and there were some projects that we funded that I would not have given one dime to. Now, I'm not gonna raise hell and try to change 6, 7 minds. I'm not gonna get it done, number one. I understand enough about politics to know that. So there's no question. The tighter we make this test, then, we're going to decide what the right answer is. And this one gets 157 and this one gets 122. And therefore, this one gets it and this guy or gal gets nothing. That's not how I want to fix this. It's not how I want to raise a family. So you are absolutely right. And some of the changes we made, I don't like any of them. We decided we were going to take from 20 points to 40. Well, who decided we're just going to double it? Well, somebody mentioned it, and somebody said that's a great idea, and I said, okay, we'll play with those rules. But I'm still going to vote the way I believe. I mean, if I can't get any points out of anything, it's a bad project. And I've looked a lot of people in the eye that are my people that want to do this or do that and said, it doesn't fit for this program what you want to do. I'm sorry, you can hate me forever, but you got nothing. And we did that last time. So you're right. And I'll just say I'm guilty, but I didn't get my way last time either. So.
I
We all left.
just want to say that
Well, we don't have enough money, number one.
Yeah, and I just want to say I deeply respect that. And if that is the process we want to move forward with, I think it's really important for us to, I'm like, say what we mean, right? Like, I'm like, if you're going to give me something to do, and then we abandon a ship at some point, I just want the collective group understanding that we're like, okay, we're going to now move away from this and have.
Now, the move is to get 7 like-minded people to believe the same thing and get the test right and go with it.
Right.
That's the move. That's the politics of community government. That's the move. If you want it to get it all your way, that's the way. That's the move. And so,
Monty, Soka, I think, to me, I look at this as an exercise.
Yeah.
So we all kind of start in the same place.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've all looked at the same points. To me, the score isn't all that meaningful. I don't think we abandon it, but I think it helps inform everybody that's here that we've all looked at, well, this one's permanently affordable, and this one has ADA, accessible units, and we've all looked at these points that we've said are important. But ultimately, it comes down to what you think the projects are that move our objectives forward. And that's how I try to vote, and I'm with Mark. I don't always get what I want,
Yeah.
but we're a group, and we all come to a consensus. So I don't think it's not a perfect tool, certainly. I would hate to award off of it, because I don't think it's not even that good. But it is a good tool to make us all look at it and recognize the same points within the proposals.
I'll also, as Andrew Gallagher, I'll also throw out there that last round was my first time with all of this. And if I hope we're not ever exploring throwing that away, because every project felt like a really good idea, and I didn't have a way to quantify the value of each one. And I know that I voted not based on exactly the numbers, but on having had that to look at and understand how it connected to our goals here, helped me make decisions that were a lot more educated than I would have otherwise. So I totally ditched it later, but I definitely, I needed it to kind of see how I emotionally and also with the numbers really did rank the things. So I think it's a great starting point for somebody like myself that's brand new to all of this. But I would also feel like if we did give the dollars based on how the numbers looked, what's the value of the board in making the decision? You don't need us, you just need people that can fill the boxes in, and then people are allowed to be as creative as they want to with what those things that they're saying they're doing, how that connects to what they're actually doing, and then you get a little bit of, I don't know the right terminology, but the numbers would not they'd get a little murky.
Yeah.
I'll say that, so.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I truly believe that the best decisions are made when multiple sources of information are considered. So I would advocate for moving away from saying that we throw this away and then consider something else, and really recognize it as being one source of information and a broader piece of a puzzle. So we have our quantitative information from our matrix. We have our qualitative information from the context we receive from the presentations, from the discussions we get together. And we have our own personal values and expertise that we bring to it as well. And it's all of those things together that are leading to the decision. So we're not throwing out the numbers. It plays a very important piece in the puzzle of making a decision.
That's what I meant.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Beth.
Well said.
100%.
I think this is a great discussion, and it has been continuing online, and it's been continuing with our partners too. And Leah, I know we're got a lot of good discussions here. I can't stop it, but I did want to add quickly too about the discussion. Independence Inc. was really helpful in making some of these decisions, or helping to make some of the advocacy for some of the things, and especially the universal design. But these are really important discussions to have with our community. Leah responded in an email, and I wrote it down so that I could really make sure I was accurate. But Leah responded in an email was that I can see developers deciding to do some extra ADA units for extra points, right? So that means this is important. It's another important thing to note that all the AHAB trust funds generally only make up between 1% and 10% of the budgets of new affordable housing developments, right? So, I'm quoting experts here and talking about this and how important this is. We talked about the Lawrence Housing Market Study that is recent, new, and giving us all types of information and insights that we need, but come from a community lens. So application of a point system to evaluate housing project funding applications, especially with an equity lens, can reveal potential biases and disparities in the application process. So this is important to do because by applying these points, we can identify applications that are more likely to address equity. Also, if you're going to apply for housing, and if you're using and receiving tax dollar incentives, applicants should demonstrate a commitment to addressing the legacy of restrictive covenants and other articles written in planning and development in Lawrence, a practice that denied housing opportunities to underserved and minoritized communities. So it is important that there's no copy paste in these applications like we've seen in big developers in the past and in the future. To center equity means that we have to not only meet the housing needs, but we also have to actively dismantle systemic barriers created by past discriminatory practices. And discriminatory practices meant that they didn't look at this in a lens that we're looking at it today. So we're doing great work in this space that we're doing, having these conversations. I know last time I was like 2. I think we agreed that it was like numbers. More numbers, because we've had these conversations about how much is 5 points, 10 points really going to make a difference when it comes to big developer who comes in saying that we deserve to support that in light of knowing what our community needs are. So I'm happy we're also continuing to have this discussion because, yeah, if you make a strong case for tax incentives, you need to do more just and equitable society care, and we need to see that. So thank you all for this discussion. Yeah.
Can I just
Well-
say thank you for indulging me in that conversation? I think it was something that I was like, hey, I noticed this, and I agree like that this is a tapestry amongst the decision-making tools that we have. I would say reinforce that in practice when we're doing it. You know, don't throw it out. Be like, hey, we did this work for a reason. Maybe let it help influence. And Monty, I like what you said, like this gives us a place to start. To me, that scoring matrix builds a case for why that applicant is deserving of X amount of funding, right? That is the way in which I see it. And it's always a conversation from there. Otherwise, Andrew's completely right. Why would we be here? It could just be an operationalized, God forbid, AI process in which somebody's just chosen. But I think if we believe in that praxis of conversation, outside experience, and matrix, let's make that the robust part of the conversation. Not leave it out, but say like, hey, this is a driving tool for us. So I will say thank you for that conversation. And
One more comment, Mark Bueller. We make our decision, and we hope that every dollar we invest, we hope all those projects get done. Well, we've all learned that there are projects that have been on the board for years, and outside influence have affected the ability of that to be successful. So one of the things I try to do is read between the tea, talk to the applicant and find out, so you get this money. So then what about the rest of it? Are you going to get it done? Because we want housing. We don't want to give you money and have it not work. And we're going to have projects that fail, that we've already funded. And we're going to have money come back to us, and we're going to get to, it's okay. But I was hoping that those units would be occupied this fall. No dice.
Right.
We failed because we couldn't anticipate some things that maybe we can determine.
right.
Forget this stuff.
Yeah.
I really think it's important to those reports, those progress reports that we get, to see why. Why hasn't something, because that tells us more than the story of, oh, we couldn't just get funding. That tells us what barriers are existing to actually getting, and that to me is our advocacy in this board of, we funded this project with the expectation it would get done, but yet we're seeing barriers from the city. We're seeing barriers from XYZ, right? And we
Right.
advocate and say, we expect this project to get done because we funded it. We believe in these folks, but here are the things that are stopping that. That to me is
Important.
the commission meetings we show up in, the conversations that we have with those that we funded and with the community, if they're pushing back, whatever the case may be. That is when I think our advocacy really turns on, because if we're saying this is our recommendation and then we're not seeing projects move in that direction, we need to talk about what the barriers are, and if they're systemic, we need to make some recommendations that will change that process or be in support of changing it so it can be successful. Because more often than not, I see projects not happening because they run into the 5 million things it takes to actually get something accomplished. And that's not anything that our funding will ever take care of, but our influence can absolutely support those folks who are really trying to do the good work of affordable housing.
So I'm going to move us to action. The action is to approve the 2026 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Notice of Funding Opportunity and Applications. And I'm going to take roll for all those approved or.
Do you need a motion?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Would you like a motion?
I do.
Would you like a motion, Chair?
Look at me. I like discourse. I'm going to engage in the motion.
Yeah, railroad us.
My God.
I like your style.
Let's get on with it, right? it's like intermediate, still a forever learner. But yes.
I move that we accept the 2026 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Notice of Funding Opportunity and associated documents as presented today.
I second.
Okay, it's been first and seconded by Elizabeth Monty. Thank you. I will take roll. Mark Bueller.
Aye.
Andrew Gallagher.
Aye.
Maria Fierro.
Aye.
Christina Gentry. Aye. Elizabeth O'Neill.
Aye.
Donna Van Dellen.
Aye.
And Monty Sokup.
Aye.
All right, all aboard. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 of us have agreed. Thank you for that conversation, and looking forward to the NOFO opportunity and all the things that it brings the community.
May I make a couple follow-up comments?
Oh, sure.
Cool, thank you. This is Leah Roseland. Just so the board is aware, now that it has been approved by the AHAB, it will go to the City Commission for approval. I will get it on the next available agenda, probably May 20th. And then, yeah. And then after that, we can release the NOFO. So now is a great time to start having conversations with developers or organizations, potential partners and applicants, to give them a heads up, and I will be doing the same.
Okay, thank you for that update. Okay, we'll move on to other new business. And I will open the opportunity to talk on new business. I don't see any line items, but I do recognize that there was someone in the space that has left the Zoom. But is there any other new business for the board to consider? Okay, moving on to the calendar dates. These are significant. Mark them in your calendars. September 11th, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board's regular meeting. And I don't want to read all of these out loud, but I trust that you all will keep to the calendar dates and look forward to some really great conversations.
I have a question on this, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Leah, I know we mentioned maybe having Dr. Hahn at the next meeting, but now I see the next meeting is reviewing the matrix and applications. So when does the NOFO close officially for the housing study?
Oh,
Is it, we just open it until somebody says hello?
Oh, Danny, do you have that off the top of your head when the RFP for the housing study closes?
NOFO RFP, wow.
Application deadline is 5 p.m. Friday, September.
Oh, were you talking about?
No, I was talking about the housing study RFP. I'm sorry, I said NOFO because I was in application world, but I meant the RFP for the. Thank you, Monty. You're like right here.
It is either the 20th or the 29th of this month, I believe. We have two of them ending close to the same time.
Okay.
One of them is a letter of interest for home ARP, and then the other one is the housing study, and I can't remember which is which, but it's either the 20th or the 29th.
Okay.
By the end of the month.
Okay, so we probably will not have a chance to hear, well, unless nobody answered the call to give us a housing study, which would be really sad.
Yeah, but by the end of this month.
Okay.
May I also ask a question? So I noticed that Mark and Andrew's terms expire September 1st, and so then our next meeting is September 11th. And so will we have 2 new members to be at that meeting, since that starts some really important orientation and work?
It's a great question.
That is up to the will and action of the city commission, but my assumption would be if they're both interested in continuing on the board, they would both be reappointed.
okay,
They're both
okay.
eligible for reappointment.
Okay. I wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my assumption.
Clarifying.
but
Okay.
I will,
Could you get a read or,
yeah, I'll give a heads
Find out what
up.
the rules
that-
are.
Yes, yeah.
That would be good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up.
I'd like to see you guys again on September.
Yeah, no, we can't lose you, we just got you.
Not trying to kick you out of the party right now.
Maybe they didn't know their terms were expiring.
Right. I was like, yeah, they're done.
We'd like to see you too, so hopefully that is the
Yeah,
application.
yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, moving on to public comment. If there is any public comment online, we ask that you please unmute. No, I don't see any public comment online. And looking around the City Hall building now, there doesn't seem to be anyone to give public comment either. So moving on to item F, adjourn. Thank you all for a great conversation, and we look forward to the next meeting. Take it easy.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.